The New York Giants have historically had the number of the Washington Commanders, but the Commanders are on a roll. Can the Giants, who host the Commanders this weekend, get their first win at MetLife Stadium? We're going to talk about that and more on today's crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Commanders, coming your way next.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Today's edition of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL, written in all lowercase letters, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. And hello, New York Giant fans, Washington Commander fans. Welcome on in to Crossover Thursday edition here on the Locked On NFL Network. The New York Giants host the Washington Commanders on Sunday. The Commanders riding high, the Giants not so much, but we're going to talk about it. I'm Patricia Traynor, your host for New York Giants, Locked On Giants, and he is David Harrison, who is the host of Locked On Commanders. And as always, David, my friend, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Always fun to talk to you. Wish we could do it more than twice a season. Maybe eventually both teams will have everything that they need and we can do a playoff crossover.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Take what we can get.
Yep, that would definitely be nice. But anyway, David, we've got a lot to talk about as we get everybody ready for today, for this weekend's show. The Commanders riding high. They're on top of the NFC East, but they probably have a few concerns, issues, and whatnot that I'm sure you're going to talk about. So let's start with you. Tell us where the Commanders are at this point, what's got you concerned, what the storylines are, and so forth.
Yeah, well, starting on defense, right? The Washington Commanders defense has been very, very Jekyll and Hyde. 1 week they have a really good game, the next week not so good, and sometimes they string together these two really good games. But overall, when you just look at the total progression of the Washington Commanders defense and the identity they kind of want to have, right? We heard all training camp, all offseason, all preseason, hunt the ball, right? That's what they wanted to do, is get takeaways, turn offenses over, get after the quarterback, do all these things. And early on, that really wasn't happening. Now, as of late, they've been better at taking advantage of opportunities. Still not a lot of interception, production, but when the ball gets loose, especially on fumbles, especially when offensive linemen are getting handoffs down in goal-to-go situations, they're taking advantage of being available and being ready to pounce on the ball. And it's really something that spreads out across the game, across the entire team. There was, earlier in the season, there was a really long play by the Washington Commanders where Austin Eckler fumbled the football, and there was a teammate of his that was pursuing the play, wasn't just watching him run on the big screen. He was pursuing the play and was there to cover it up. Then, of course, you have the defensive fumble recoveries. And then on special teams, most recently, just this last week, there was a fumble on the opening punt return, the very first punt return of the game for the Washington Commanders. Olamide Zaccheaus fumbles the ball. Jeremy McNichols is one of three players. The other two players are Bears. He's the only Commanders player that's there, but because you can see him kind of in posture, in position to make a play on the ball if one needs to be made, he's able to get on that ball, able to keep it secure for the Washington Commanders. So again, I know we're talking defense, but overall, that's kind of been the mantra. And because of that, Patricia, coming out of that last Giants game, the Commanders were averaging 1 sack per game. Not only were they averaging 1 sack per game, they literally got 1 sack in week 1, 1 sack in week 2. Since then, they've averaged 3.3 sacks per game. So very, very, very much an increase in their sack production. However, the flip side of this, right, the Jekyll and Hyde part of this is they're also averaging half a yard more in the run game. They're allowing a half a yard per carry more in the run game. And some people will be like, it's only half a yard. But if you're talking about 20 carries, that's 10 yards of total space you're giving up. If that's a 3rd and 2, that might be a first down instead of a 3rd or 4th and short. If that's a 2nd and 6, that might be a 3rd and 4 instead of a 2nd and 7 or a 3rd and 7. So those things matter, and those things absolutely pile up through the course of a football game. So while you're happy with the pass rush production and the improvement there, you want to see that defensive front, especially that front seven, get better at stopping opposing running games, especially a team that likes to run the ball as much as the New York Giants do.
Although you might get a break with Tyrone Tracy, who's in the concussion
That's
protocol.
true.
So
Don't
you might get
celebrate
a
the
break
injury
there.
for him, but you're absolutely
Yeah, exactly. David, talk to us about Jayden Daniels. I mean, he's just been absolutely phenomenal. I know
yeah.
he's been dealing with the rib injury. What's the status on him? And what is it about the offense that they're running that he's been able to take to so quickly?
Yeah, Jayden, I mean, I think Jayden's gonna be fine, right? Like there was no major setbacks or anything. And watching him in practice and watching him interact in the locker room, like he feels fine and he's gonna be good to go as far as playing this game. Like there's no concerns. Unless something freaky happens, knock on wood that it doesn't, there shouldn't be a problem there for him to go. And depending on which side of this last week's competition you're in with the Chicago Bears, a lot of Bears fans want to point out the 55% completion rate and say, well, that was one of his worst days as a passer. But then Washington fans want to point out the 300 plus passing yard performance, which is the career high for him coming in, in his short NFL season so far. And me personally trying to be, as even keel as I can be, I'm going to tell you right now that his last performance basically falls right in the middle for me because yes, it's a 55% completion rate, but there's also those four drops, if you get those back, don't take it to 80% or 90%, right? But it takes it closer to that 70% mark, which is kind of the minimum of where most quarterbacks at least want to be. So that kind of improves things. But then you love the yardage production. You love his ability to freelance when he needs to. And I think you love the fact that this offense and getting to what makes him so successful with Cliff Kingsbury is Cliff Kingsbury isn't one of these coaches that says, hey, dude, we know that you have the athleticism, but we don't want you to lean on it. We want you to be a passer first. Every quarterback is supposed to be a passer first. That's across the board. But what the Washington Commanders say is, listen, we'll work on you staying a passer as we need to. In the meantime, do what makes you special. Right? Like we go back to week 1 against Tampa Bay Buccaneers before he played the New York Giants. And this dude took off. I don't want to say all the time because that's hyperbolic, right? But to be hyperbolic, he took off the entire game. Like he was dropping back. First read wasn't open. He's taken off, right? And Cliff Kingsbury basically described it as a rookie quarterback who's in flight mode. Like he's in survival mode. That's basically what he was out there trying to do. It's his first NFL game. You come to the Giants game, you see a little bit of a better quarterback. Week 3, a little bit better. Week 4, a little bit better. And he's starting to get his NFL legs under him where he's comfortable understanding, okay, my first read's not there. Let me get to my second. But at the same time, he's also punishing aggressive defenses that are bringing blitzes or that are bringing consistent 4-man pressures. And when they give him the opportunity to find lanes as a runner, he's taking them, but he's taking them smarter. He's taking them more efficiently. And he's also keeping his eyes downfield and staying alive as a passer. And then this no huddle. Patricia, I think that's really where the magic happens, right? The New York Giants saw it a little bit, but since these two teams have last seen each other, that no huddle percentage, the usage rate of no huddle for the Washington Commanders offense has gone up about 15%. So that shows you how much more comfortable the Washington Commanders are in this no huddle offense. And the brilliant thing about it is it's a lot of brain power. So I'm told, right, that Tony Romo said during last week's CBS broadcast that it's really impressive that Jayden Daniels is calling his own plays at the line of scrimmage. And I will tell you that Jayden Daniels certainly has some control at the line of scrimmage. I would even say more control than most rookie quarterbacks do. However, when you're looking at this no-huddle offense, this isn't Jayden just shooting from the hip saying, hey, guys, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. They literally, in front of us, actually, which is actually impressive, Patricia, you know this from a media standpoint, they actually, in front of us, practice their no-huddle routines. That's what I call them, routines. They go up and down the field, 8, 9, 10 plays. They have them mapped. They know coming to the game, it's this play, then it's this play, then it's this play, this play, and here's the formations we shift into. So what looks like spur of the moment on the field is actually very well rehearsed. It's memorized, which is another part of that brain power. And in real time, Jayden Daniels and these quarterbacks are prepared to execute it, put their players in the right position. And again, go back to rookie quarterbacks, Patricia. How many illegal formations, illegal shifts? How many of those penalties do you see on a weekly basis in the NFL? You've got a rookie quarterback memorizing a 7 to 10 play script of no huddle offense, and they're not getting these types of flags. They're not getting these illegal shifts or these illegal formation penalties. It just really shows you the mental capacity of Jayden Daniels and what is helping him accelerate his development so much in the league.
It's funny, David. Today, head coach Brian Daboll of the Giants was asked about Jayden Daniels, and you could almost hear it in his voice how he probably would have liked to have gotten his hands on him.
Oh,
I mean, he was just so impressed by Jayden Daniels and had so many wonderful things to say about him as both a person and as a quarterback, and truly what that young man has done in such a short period of time. I mean, you got to think that he's a leading candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. You got to
Yeah.
think that, that this kid, that Hail Mary play is probably going to win, at the NFL awards. It's probably going to win play of the year. I mean, just amazing what he's done.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not an official award, but it's a cool award. He's got 2 Hemmies, right? He's got 2 Hemmies under his belt. He and Noah Brown won this week's Hemmy, for those who are fans of the ESPN Monday Night Football broadcast. So, look, he's doing a lot of impressive things, but he's displaying a lot of maturity very early on, which is very rare for a player of his experience in the NFL. And, Dan Quinn says it's some of it's from his college experience. So I think it's certainly valid. He had to earn his starting job at Arizona State. He had to earn his starting job at LSU. This is a guy who's never been handed a single thing in his entire career. And not for nothing, but he's also faced a lot of hatred in his career. He had a lot of Arizona State fans and even teammates turn on him when he transferred. And LSU very flatly said, dude, you can come here, but we're not going to promise you anything. And there was almost an era of you're not going to be the starter from the outside of the LSU community. And then he comes in there and obviously does what he's able to do. So I think that builds a lot into it.
All right, Giant fans, Commanders fans, when we come back, we're going to look at the New York Giants, the key storylines there. So please stay with us on this crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Commanders. Hey, everybody, our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, with special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave. We see you. You know what else gave me a bit of a Giants fan fuel this week? The Giants are inching up the draft order, currently sitting at number 9, which pushed them that much closer to being able to get their next quarterback without having to give away the farm. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're preparing for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com to ship nationwide. That's the number 5hourenergy.com to ship your order nationwide. All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday. Locked On Giants, Locked On Commanders. The Giants, the home team, looking for their first win of the season at MetLife Stadium. Hard to believe, David, that the Giants can't win at home. I mean, the home games have been anything but home sweet home for the New York Giants. And I think we've got to start there in terms of, the biggest storylines. We've gone around the locker room. We've asked various players, what is it about playing at home this year that's been such a struggle versus playing on the road? And a lot of people just seem to feel that, at home, you just feel like you have to crank it up even further. And whereas on the road, you can kind of kick back. You already know that you're hated because you're the visiting team, and you can kind of just take that, the heck with it type of attitude. And I'm cleaning that up, obviously, because that's not what they said. So Giants, just don't play well at home. And here's an amazing stat. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown at MetLife Stadium until dating back, I want to say against the Colts last year. So it's been a long time. Just the team, it's a tale of two teams. It's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde type of scenario for the Giants. So the Giants offense, just not very good, but you know what is good? The defense has been playing well, all things considered, for the New York Giants. And I think that's where the Giants are going to have to win this game. And, we've saw it in the past, how the Giants have been able to shut down the Commanders. But here's the thing. Jayden Daniels, according to Pro Football Focus, has only been pressured 36.7% of his passes. And you know what? I expect that number to go up with this Giants pass rush, with Dexter Lawrence, who's always a load to handle, with Brian Burns, who's fighting through injuries, but who, is out there. Azeez Ojulari, who's been playing well in place of Kayvon Thibodeau. They've got to get pressure on Jayden Daniels, force him into making some mistakes, and also contain him in the pocket so that he doesn't escape, whether it be up the middle or, to the outside or whatever. So the defense obviously going to be a big key for this Giants team. The question is, can the offense keep up with it? This is a Washington team that I believe is ranked in the top 10 across the board. I think they're the number 3 overall offense. I want to say they're number 2 scoring offense, number 3 rushing offense, I believe, and number 10 passing offense.
Mm-hmm.
The run game in particular is what concerns me most, because the Giants' run defense, and this is just hard to believe, again, because you have Dexter Lawrence in there, the run defense just hasn't been good against, the last 3 opponents. We've seen the Giants just get gashed like crazy. So in terms of storylines, that's going to be a big one to keep an eye on. The lengthy injury report the Giants have this week, there were 15 guys on the injury report. That's a concern. Some big names, no Tyrone Tracy, it looks like, for this week, because he's in the concussion protocol. And can the Giants finally get that win? Can Daniel Jones finally start throwing touchdowns at home?
Yeah, it's really been surprising, Patricia, because you don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but you almost kind of look at it like last year, the Giants scored 10 touchdowns on the ground, 15 through the air, 4 in the return game, 4 in special teams. So your offense scored 25 touchdowns in 17 games. It's not a great scoring rate, right? But this year they're actually on pace to score even less, right? Like they're actually on pace to do worse. And last year there were already a lot of, we talked last year, there were already a lot of rumbles and the lowest scoring output in 2023 since 2017, which, isn't ages ago or eons ago, but it just kind of shows you how rare it is to score that few amount of points in the National Football League, especially when all the rules are kind of designed to have offenses have the upper hand. So it's really kind of surprising just kind of how things have developed, even though there obviously is some talent there with the Giants roster. And yeah, you're right. Like, having Tracy, again, we all assume he's not going to play because of how hard it is to go through concussion protocol in such a small period of time. And he didn't even enter protocol until Tuesday. So like, you're already behind the 8 ball from a time standpoint. That's big for the Washington Commanders. Like, we're not going to hide, I'm not going to hide from that from a conversation piece, but at the same time, I think the key in this element, and I think that's part of, to be quite honest with you, like, that's part of the reason that sometimes Washington Commanders teams that maybe were viewed as more talented than these Giants rosters, yet still came in and got their butts kicked and weren't able to execute, is because they bought into it. They said, you know what, we are supposed to beat these guys. We are supposed to be better than these guys. And sometimes teams say, we're not going to hide from that fact that we're better than you. But the key is, even if you're not going to hide from the fact that you're supposed to be better, quote unquote, you can't come in with the aspect of our reputation is going to score points for us, because that's never going to happen. You have to come in and say, we're going to come show you why our reputation says we're better than you. That's how you win these games that you're supposed to, quote unquote, win. And when you look at the Washington Commanders team, who's leading the NFC East division, Jayden Daniels starting to get some MVP whispers and all this stuff, you should beat a team that's kind of in disarray like this Giants team is. But again, it's the attitude that's going to get you there. And I think that this team has the right attitude. Dan Quinn talked about that on Wednesday, about handling the stuff, right? That's kind of how he, quote unquote, put it, is the stuff that comes with this game. And sometimes it's bad stuff. Sometimes it's 5 interception games. It's all these turnovers, all these penalties that lead to 7 field goals. How do you deal with that stuff? But also, how do you deal with being the talk of the town and having a Hail Mary win and everybody's praising you and everybody's saying, man, this is a team of destiny and you can't be stopped. Like, that stuff too, right? And how this team bounces back from that, because you could very easily fall in love with your own press clippings. And that's where, again, Jayden Daniels, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, like, these are guys who have been around the block. They've been praised, and they've demonstrated that they had this mentality of being praised for week 8 doesn't matter. This is week 9. None of that praise happened this week. That's all last week. That's all history. And that's how you're going to beat a team like the New York Giants and not let them up off the mat, quite honestly, because that's exactly what you have to do. Is they're down, you got to kick them while they're there. This isn't hopscotch, right? This isn't friend circle. This is football. You got to kick these guys while they're down. That's what the Commanders got to do this week.
Yeah, and in terms of the Giants, they just got to play loose and remember why they play the game. They've just been so tight. The mistakes. Last week against the Steelers, I think of their 9 of their 11 penalties were on the offense, and 5 of those 9 pre-snap. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's absolutely crazy. And then that goes back to what I was saying about the Giants playing a little too wound up, if you will. So they just got to go back to the basics. Just go out there, have fun, say the heck with it. Just let it fly. Stop thinking so much. And I think that's part of the problem with the Giants, especially on offense, especially with Daniel Jones. He just overthinks things. And, it trickles down to the rest of the offense. You just go out there, let it fly, and, see what happens. At this point, you're 2-6. The best case scenario, you come out with a win. If you don't, oh well.
You almost kind of have nothing to lose at this point. I think if you're looking at the New York Giants, there's something interesting, Patricia, when I was getting ready for this matchup this week that I saw, and I thought that the Giants were, I think, from a coaching standpoint, are very smart to do. And again, it hasn't produced a lot of wins, so it's hard, I think, for a Giants fan to sit back and be like, yeah, okay, it's smart, great, it's not working anyway. But like the New York Giants have noticed, there's a significant uptick in 4-man fronts versus 3-man fronts and 2-man fronts. And when we as the Washington Commanders first saw this Giants defense, it was mostly 2- and 3-man fronts, but not a lot of blitzing coming behind it. Yet they were still trying to bring 4-man pressure. So in essence, you're trying to disguise who's coming along with the down lineman, which is great, but you're not getting that type of force up front, and your run defense isn't going to be as great. Now you're bringing 4 down linemen, and I think what that does is it helps prevent teams from focusing so much on Dexter Lawrence and maybe freeing him up for a little bit more. I wouldn't say more one-on-one opportunities, but maybe less triple team situations, right? Like even getting a double team on Dexter Lawrence, like Sexy Dexy can still beat that up. So I think that's really smart, and I think that switching their run game over, with the rise of Tracy, I'm trying to look it up here. Actually, they flipped from more. I want to say they flipped from more zone runs to more gap runs.
Yeah.
If I have the flip correct, and I think that's incredibly smart because just what you said, play fast, right? Play fast and just get after it. Don't overthink it. And I've talked to running backs who enjoy zone runs because there's more options. You have more opportunity to read the blocks, read what's happening on the field. Whereas a gap run, you either hit your gap or you bounce it. There's only 2 choices. And the team like this one, maybe they need those gaps. They just need, hey, dude, hit the A gap or bounce it outside. Hit the B gap or bounce it outside. Hit the C gap or bounce it inside. Those are your 2 choices. Don't think about it too much. Just hit it or bounce it. And that could make things simpler for the offense and certainly lead to some success, which I think Tyrone Tracy has been able to embody. Unfortunately, probably not this weekend.
Yeah. And to your point, Tyrone Tracy is still relatively new at running back. So he's still learning the finer points. Yeah. But, when given his opportunities, I mean, it's clear that he's overtaken Devin Singletary for RB1 on this team. But again, I don't know that he makes it this week. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He did do some work on the side with a trainer. So we think he's like stage 3 of the 5-phase concussion protocol. A big day, obviously, is going to be Thursday. If he can get out there with the red jersey on and practice on a limited basis, then I would feel a lot better. But if he doesn't practice, then I would say it's going to be Devin Singletary and Eric Gray for the run game, which, it's not a horrible combination, but you kind of want to stick with the hot hand if you are the New York Giants. All right. Coming up next, folks, we're going to talk about the keys to victory as well as any last minute concerns here on Crossover Edition of Locked On Giants, Locked On Commanders. Don't go anywhere. Today's episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you in part by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off to a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. Whatever you want, they're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest point value currency by the Points Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday. Locked On Giants, Locked On Commanders. The New York Giants host the Washington Commanders on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. The Giants looking for their first win at home of the 2024 season. And David, let's talk about the keys to victory for each side. We'll start with the Commanders.
Yeah, I think the three things that the Washington Commanders have to do is counter that Giants pass rush. You just mentioned it. Look, they're not blitzing a lot, but they're bringing four-man rushes a lot more often. They're lining up with four down linemen a lot more often. Now, sometimes maybe guys dropping back and an off-ball linebacker or something like that is coming in. Certainly some things you can still do to kind of disguise those things. Sounds a little bit more simplistic, but when you have Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence, you can still kind of be simplistic and basically tell your guys, like, our best is going to beat your best. We're going to put your quarterback under pressure. Left tackle position is a big question mark for the Washington Commanders this week. Brandon Coleman missed last week's game with a concussion. He is in concussion protocol. He was able to practice on Wednesday. So just like Tyrone Tracy, like, the big thing for Brandon now is Thursday, can they get him out there full? If he has no setbacks from the limited participation on Wednesday, then hopefully Thursday he can go full. If he can go full Thursday, maybe get cleared by Friday, or they may decide to slow roll it anyway, wait to do the full on Friday. And as long as he's symptom free, he'll be able to play. That's huge because Cornelius Lucas, the veteran left tackle that he's been rotating with, hurt his ankle last week. He didn't practice at all Wednesday. I don't think he's going to be available this weekend. So if Brandon can't clear concussion protocol, which there's nothing he can physically do about it himself, just to be clear, and Cornelius Lucas can't come back from that ankle, then you're looking at Trent Scott. And I'm a big fan of Trent Scott, but he's your third left tackle for a reason. And your third left tackle on the right side of the Giants defense is not going to be a good thing for Jayden Daniels or anybody involved. So definitely want to keep an eye on that left tackle position if you're a Giants fan. Second thing, they got to find the end zone. We all remember it. 7 field goals. Fortunately, it got the win last time. You can't try to do that again. They tried to do it against the Chicago Bears and darn near got bit for it, right? You can't do that again. We can disrespect the New York Giants on the outside all we want. You're not going to beat the New York Giants 2 games in a row, I don't think, only kicking field goals. That would be something that I don't think the NFL's ever seen. Then you got to contain explosive plays. I'm going to go deeper in this on my Friday episode for Commanders fans. But bottom line is the New York Giants are the second lowest scoring team this season, but they're 11th in time of possession. So what that tells me is the Giants will actually run a lot of plays and mess up their own drives. They're essentially not going to get into scoring range, or they're not going to get into the end zone at least, and they'll put up just field goals. So as long as you're answering those with touchdowns, you're going to be fine. Part of that reason is because of how much they run, despite the fact that they're trailing by as much as they are, despite the fact that they're losing as many games as they are, they actually only trail opponent rush attempts by 2. They're running the ball nearly as much as their opponents while they're losing the large majority of their game. Typically, you expect to see a much higher pass ratio from those teams. Now, part of that is Daniel Jones, 5th most rush attempts this year by a quarterback. So that certainly plays into this. But even with Daniel Jones, you would expect that rush margin to be much different. So it just kind of shows that this Giants offense is one that if you don't let them score, the number that I've put down is if you don't let them score in fewer than 8 plays on a drive consistently, you will be in position to outscore them at the end of the game.
All right, sounds good. Now, the Giants this week will have a healthy kicker, fingers crossed, which they did not have
there you go.
when they met the Commanders back in week 2. But for the New York Giants, key number 1, they have to get pressure on Jayden Daniels. As I mentioned before, Jayden Daniels has only been under pressure 36.7% of his dropbacks. The Giants lead the league in quarterback pressures. They lead the league in sacks. They got to get some of those. And against, a compromised Commanders offensive line, there is no reason why they can't at least get some more pressure than what Daniels has experienced. The second thing, and I mentioned this also at the top of the program, but I'll mention it again. They've got to stop the run. The Commanders have, I think, the third best rushing offense. The Giants' run defense has been terrible. It has been absolutely terrible. They've been gouged. And I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks now in a row that they have given up over 100 yards. Twice this season, they've given over 200 yards on the ground. We all know that with the Commanders, I think averaging over 5.6 yards per game. That creates a lot of short yardage situations. So you cannot give the Commanders options on second down, on third down by letting them, run crazy. So that's got to be a priority. And then the other thing, my audience is probably going to say, here she goes again with the Daniel Jones hate. But folks, it's true. Daniel Jones has got to start playing about the X's and O's. We all saw it on Monday night. Daniel Jones throws with no anticipation. Daniel Jones, in the big moments of that game against the Steelers, he had 2 opportunities to rise above, put the team on his shoulders and carry them over the finish line, and he didn't. Yeah. And, you just can't have that kind of play week in and week out. At some point, the quarterback has to rise to the occasion. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to do that. Now, I don't know if it's because, he's nursing something that they're not telling us. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. I don't know what it is, but it's quite frustrating when you watch him play quarterback and then you see some of these other young quarterbacks around the league or these more established quarterbacks and you say, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to have that? So, the Giants got to get better quarterback play. And then I'll mention one last thing, if I could. Get turnovers if you're the Giants defense. The Giants, I think they have 1 interception this year, which is crazy if you think about it. Look, special teams is not flipping the field for the Giants, not giving them advantageous starting field possession. So why not get some turnovers? Get a forced fumble that you recover, get an interception, give the struggling offense a shorter field on which to work. And who knows, maybe that'll be just the kickstart that they need to get on some kind of a scoring run and play better than they have. Because if you ask the Giants to drive all the way down the field, they can go. They're fine in between the 20s, but the red zone, longer fields, that's where the Giants fall apart, and they need to get better production, especially if they get down in that red zone.
Yeah, I found a play, I think it was against Cleveland Browns, I think, if I'm correct, but they started on the opponent 30. So they're at the plus 30 when they get the ball. 8 plays later, kicking a field goal. You can't do that. You can't do that in the NFL. You can't do that in the NFL. And you're 100% right, Patricia. The Giants -3 turnover differential, the Washington Commanders +4. So if you can flip those numbers, obviously Commanders fans don't want to see that. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to drive to New Jersey to watch the Washington Commanders turn the ball over all day. But if you can do that, if you're the Giants defense, then that's what you can do. Look, in the NFC squad episode, Patricia, I know you weren't able to make it because you're dealing with, the short week after the Monday Night Football game. But Aaron Freeman, Locked On Falcons, for anybody who hasn't seen the NFC squad show, at the end of the episode, I asked him for a bold prediction. His bold prediction was the Giants upsetting the Washington Commanders. So
Ooh.
We'll see.
Look, in the past, the Giants have had Washington's number. I don't think Washington. Oh, yeah. I think the last time Washington swept the season series was, I want to say, 2021. But for the most part, the Giants have had success against Washington. Then again, this is not your grandfather's Washington Commanders team. This is a much, much better team with a better quarterback, better coaching, just all around better. And, you can't, if you're a Giant fan, you can't sit there and say, this is a gimme game. And it's not, folks. It definitely is not. But hopefully Aaron Freeman is correct. Remind me, I'll have to send him a thank you note after we're done taping here for picking the Giants. But anyway, folks, that's going to do it for us here on Crossover Thursday, Locked On Giants, Locked On Commanders. Please make sure you check out David Harrison's show, Locked On Commanders. He's got plenty of content, great content that he does a great job with. He'll be wrapping up his coverage or pregame coverage tomorrow on his Friday show. And also, please check out Locked On Giants. I have some stuff for you as well that I'm going to be rolling out for the Friday show. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in, spending time with us today. For David Harrison, I'm Patricia Traina, and we will see you on our respective shows on Friday.